name is Alexander. I work at the European Union delegation to the African Union. Good morning to Excellencies here present. Good morning to all the press representatives. Apparently, it's still not on.
Maybe you can use this one.
Oh, yeah, that should be better. Does it work? No. All right. Let me start over. Excellencies, dear press members, welcome to this press point. As you know, we have just signed a landmark Memorandum of Understanding between the European Union and the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area. This Memorandum of Understanding comes as a coronation of a long-standing partnership between the Secretariat on the one hand and the European Union and 8 European Union member states on the other hand. Those member states are Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Sweden. I'm very pleased that we have here with us Director Makong, representing the Secretariat of the AfCFTA. We also have Ambassador Nino Perez for the European Union. We are also pleased to have ambassadors for Ireland, for Finland, Ambassador for Sweden also in the room. So that is it for the introduction. I will pass over the floor to my colleague media officer, Rita. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexander. And yes, we are here to explain to you what was just signed and here to your questions as well. So we were asking our excellencies to do a short introduction remarks, and then we open for questions. Please, if you have a question, raise your hand, and whenever I give you the floor, we have some mics going around. Please introduce yourself, your name, and also the media you are representing. And this Memory of Understanding is part of the very comprehensive partnership between African Union and European Union. So it's one of the examples when we are delivering the outcomes of the summit in Luanda last year. So with no further ado, I will invite Director to start with your short introductions of the meaning of this signing that we have today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator and Your Excellencies. It's a pleasure to be here, and the members of the press, absolute pleasure to be able to have this exchange with you this morning. I'll be very brief. The journey between the African Union and the European Union, in as far as the AfCFTA is concerned, it actually started as far back as when the conceptualization of the AfCFTA came to the table, and this is as far back as 2009 thereabouts. And since then, the European Union has been a partner, and a trusted partner, in supporting a number of key activities and projects that we have had within the framework of the African Union and the transition into the creation of the AfCFTA. So it is in this sort of a context that we are having this level of engagement with the European Union. Of course, the world has changed, and therefore, as you've heard during the session, the opening session, these relationships are also being recalibrated with a view to ensuring that our relationships are grounded on partnerships. And I think the Excellency, the Minister of Austria, said it very well. It's all about partnerships, not a donor type of a relationship. And this is what we are driving forward. From an African perspective, what we are looking forward to having is a trade-led investment type of a relationship. And of course, in view of the different packages that were signed today, it seems that we are actually in the right track of ensuring that we move in the direction of the trade-led investment. And this is something that we think this partnership will advance in the many more years to come. I'll stop there, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ambassador.
Thank you, Rita, and a very, very good morning to you all. Truly a pleasure to be here with Director Macron, with the Irish and Finnish ambassadors, and a few others hiding in behind, but very meaningfully contributing to the process. Sweden, Slovakia, up to 8 member states actually are part of this initiative to support the continental free trade area. I'll be also very brief and maybe just frame what we just did today in the strange world that Director Macron was referring to. when it comes to the way we engage internationally, and certainly when it comes to trade, the African Union and the EU believe that the way forward is precisely through cooperation, through dialogue, through respect, through predictability, through rules. We believe this is not about imposing unilaterally 50% tariffs on Lesotho. This is belief internationally is not about invading other countries. We want to make things work in a much more civil way on the experience that we have in Europe, where simply trade was the driving engine of the European integration process and led certainly to prosperity and economic benefits, but also to stability. And I insist, today the African Union, Secretary General, Commissioner Sikela sent a strong message. We continue to believe that the way forward when it comes to trading with other countries, with other continents, is through rules, is through respect, and is through predictability.
I don't know if ambassadors from Finland and Ireland want to say something in the beginning.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for giving me also a chance. Finland is a relatively small country, but living from export and high technology, and but after the Second World War, Finland was an agrarian poor country. So this kind of trade and rule-based trade gives a lot of opportunities, and I believe it will give the same here in Ethiopia. We, from the beginning, Finland has been supporting the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, both via the Team Europe joint support, but also we support Trademark Africa. We really believe that trading in a way at the national level also trade enhances democracy, because traders and businesses want to have openness and transparency. And what is happening now, you are having in Africa, you have too little trade between each others. So issues like regional economic integration would be very, very important everywhere. This is what we do in Europe. We have the internal markets where people and goods can move freely. We really believe that this is something that you have a good chance of creating jobs, growing your economy with private sector. You have for instance in Africa, Horn of Africa, you have different resources, the country. Some have water, some have harbors, some can grow agricultural products, some have, human resources. If you work more together, so with the regional economic integration, everybody will win. We are doing this in European Union, and we in Finland, we sincerely believe that this is important here. And there are important issues like promoting women's businesses for the youth. Here, 70% of your population is under 30 years old, and many of them are unemployed. So digitalization that they are discussing in the panel there, we have Nokia president for Africa, Middle East, they are speaking also. Digitalization provides key and important areas of growth and jobs, and not only at the national level, but with this Africa Continental Free Trade areas, you can go across the borders. So we in Finland, we have done our prosperity with trading, so we hope that African countries are doing it the same with this Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
Thank you, and good morning everybody. My name is Olivia and I'm the Ambassador of Ireland. Ireland has been very happy to support the EU's Technical Assistance Facility and to work with the AfCFTA Secretariat in what we see as a transformative piece of action for the future of this continent. Like Finland, economic integration in the EU was extraordinary for Ireland, transformed the opportunities for all of us and delivered on a very, very significant scale for us. So we believe that this is an important piece of work for the African continent itself, but also for the EU and for our support here. And we think that, as everybody has said, there is benefit for all of us in this. I just want to pick up on one thing which my colleague from Finland mentioned, but which the Secretary General also mentioned this morning at the signing ceremony, and which is very important. The question of economic inclusion and the protocol on women and youth, which Sinica also referred to there, is a critical part of this, and one which we in Ireland see as really essential to the work that what you're trying to achieve with the agreement and with the further implementation of it. And I think that piece around economic inclusion has been at the heart of the success of economic integration in Europe, and I think that it can be at the heart of success of economic integration in Africa. So really a big congratulations to the Secretariat from Ireland and from all of our EU partners on ensuring that remains at the heart of the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies. And now we open for questions from the press. Please let me know. We have one here, two. We will gather four in this first round. So 1, 2, okay. Do we have the mics around so we can start with the lady with the red jacket? Please ensure that you say your name and the media you are representing, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Bezoy Tulaga from Addis Cultural Newspaper. My question for you is how will the European Union will help the AfCFTA, so the free trade
So I will ask like this. My question for you is how will the European will help the AfCFTA since one of the challenges in Africa is Africa exports much of the core products like agricultural products. There's less processing here. One of the challenges here. How will the European Charter will help through that? What are the practical time by time? Helps that the AfCFTA is going to help the AfCFTA through this memorandum of understanding. I would love to know that. Thank you.
Let's try this one again. Yes.
Can you hear me? Thank you. Actually, my questions are specific to Ethiopia. The first question is, while you are hosting, I'm asking for EU ambassadors here, while you are co-hosting the business forum, how could you describe the current EU-Ethiopia relation? And I've heard from the Commissioner Scala before about the resumption of budgetary support. And can we say EU has fully resumed today the budget support that has been suspended before it? And related to this, speaking about the relationship, is there any new updates concerning the EU restriction on EU visa restriction on Ethiopians? Where you are speaking about bilateral relation EU-Ethiopia. My third question is, I have been in contact with the EU chamber here, and the chamber has been. I have heard more than 300 investors are here, and the chamber has been saying there are some challenges in Ethiopia with regard to custom uncertainty, irregularity of laws, and some bureaucracy, despite the positive proceeding here. What are the challenges the EU business are being affected here? Thank you.
Sorry, since
Very quickly.
since I sit with my colleague, I have to.
I just want to clarify something. We hear your questions, and it's of course all questions related to Ethiopia. It's of course we can react as much as we want, but it's more for the press conference with the commissioner right after this one at 12:15. He will be more, and we also have our press officer from the EU delegation to Ethiopia that would actually help you to go deeper on your questions about EU to Ethiopia or Ethiopia side. Okay? And yes, of course. And we listen anyway, but it's.
Thank you. My name is Abraham and I come from the reporter newspaper. So my question is for both of you. So the first one is it has been like almost a decade for AfCFTA to be established, but its takeoff is still there. We haven't seen like a significant change. So what is AfCFTA doing? And what are the main bottlenecks for takeoff to be like this? And how is EU supporting this agenda? That's my question. And the other one is regarding this forum. So what concrete outcomes comes from this agreement from the EU Commission to boost its economic development?
Tell your name and the media.
I tremendously appreciate for your time investment, and this is Ababech Makonnen with indigenous name from state-owned media Addis Media Network serving the capital Addis Ababa, and on behalf of my media organization I would love to say welcome to aesthetically appealing and the city becoming Africa's Dubai, Addis Ababa, focusing on fostering the economic ties between Europe and Ethiopia. When I proceed to my question, what are the key priorities in place to engage the youth groups across all Africa, as youth is the engine of development? Most importantly, how you are planning to engage the youth groups to participate in investment not only in Ethiopia, across in the region and in the Horn of Africa. And the second question I want to give an emphasis is, how do you think to unlock the financial problems across the continent, as the finance is a critical crisis in the continent, and that is making the leaders work hard and persistently for addressing the problem in the area? And also, do you have any plans to overcome the problems related to the digital problem, most specifically internet access, for instance, across Africa? Thank you very much.
Director, please.
Thank you very much for the questions. I will speak to maybe 3 or 4 that had been asked and directed to us. In terms of the bottlenecks and how EU is actually supporting the work that we do. First, it's important to understand that the EU is not necessarily supporting the AfCFTA Secretariat, but it's supporting African countries, of whom we are the Secretariat of these countries. So that's very important to highlight. What needs to be understood is that the AfCFTA, it is actually in transition. For the past couple of years, we've been facilitating member states to undertake negotiations of a number of legal instruments. Now, these legal instruments, if you were to take one, let's say we take the legal instrument on digital trade, a protocol on digital trade, setting out rules on digital trade. The World Trade Organization has been negotiating that instrument for decades. But us in the continent, given the premium we put on digitization and digitalization, we've been able to have this negotiation run in no less than a year. And we have a robust set of rules right there. So again, all of these negotiations that we've been convening, a number of technical assistance provided to our member states, we've been working shoulder by shoulder with the European Union to make sure that our member states are enabled to engage in that sense. And of course, this applies across multiple legal instruments that we have. So the issue about the bottlenecks, we are not yet there in fact, we are actually solving the bottlenecks by creating these rules. The transition now is from the negotiations into implementation, because these legal instruments, we have fully negotiated them and the negotiations are done. Now we are moving into implementations to do what? To solve exactly the bottlenecks that you're talking about. So this is what I normally call the AfCFTA, the insurance policy for the continent, because it provides the opportunity for us to deal with several other challenges that we have and what you call the bottlenecks. And again, we've been working with the European Union in that particular context. In terms of the question raised around the priorities we have concerning youth, and Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Ireland, already mentioned that we do have one of a kind, the only one in the world, a protocol on digital, or rather on women and youth in trade. That particular protocol sets out rules that our member states have committed to. And part of those rules, they cut across a spectrum of elements, from digital inclusion to financial inclusion. All of those are there. How do we support women and youth that are actually trading on our borders, speaking different languages, including languages that are beyond the languages of the African Union? Member states have made commitments in as far as that is concerned. There's what we call, the simplified trade regime. How do we ensure that the requirements that are imposed on big businesses are not similar requirements that are required of these small businesses? Can we make it much easier for them to trade across borders? So that's exactly what you would find in that particular legal instrument. And of course, we expect our members to now take these legal instruments, ratify them, and turn them into national law. That's the next step, because we just concluded the negotiations. So again, I can spend the whole day talking about this particular subject matter because it is closer to my heart. Of course, the added incentive is that I have 2 girls, so you can imagine how I'm very much acclimatized to this. So that's an important element to consider. The other question that had been raised is about the finance-related problems in the continent. And we are very proud of our member states that they have come up with another unique legal instrument that you'll not find anywhere else in the world. Perhaps you'll only find it in the European Union, of which we really borrowed a lot from the practices of the European Union, but we have the protocol on digital trade. Within that protocol, the member states have agreed on rules on cross-border digital payments. Today, it should be possible for a young person in Ethiopia, a software engineer, to offer me services when I'm seated somewhere in Accra. But now the problem is, how do we ensure that the payment rails are in place? This particular protocol provides for that. Another element to it is that the member states of the African Union have also negotiated within the framework of this protocol an annex, again, the rules on fintechs, financial technology companies. You're having your own financial technology companies here. We've been talking about digitization and how we can use the telecom companies to now transact across borders, not just within Ethiopia. Is that possible? Yes, it is possible. We are seeing it happening in East Africa as Safaricom. It is possible for you to pay for services in Uganda and Rwanda. We are seeing that happening as well in West Africa, Nigeria. So again, all of this, we are trying to make sure that we are having these technologies continentalized and the practices continentalized. I think it's important to also recognize that Africa is the first that actually innovated the whole mobile technology, payment systems as we have them now. So again, a very important element. And I think it's important also to recognize that it's not just this set of rules on digital trade. They are also part and parcel of several other rules within the AfCFTA ecosystem. Lastly, I think you talked about already about overcoming the problems of digitization. And again, going back to this particular framework, legal instrument on digital trade, it has 3 key elements that will touch to the question you asked. We call it DPI, Digital Public Infrastructure. 3 elements: payments, cross-border data transfer, very important. Again, I'll repeat: payments, cross-border data transfer, and also digital identity. And I know that in Ethiopia, you are rolling out the national IDs. Imagine if you can have your national ID to actually transact in other countries. Imagine if it would be possible for you to use your national ID, you're a trader, and then it is recognized maybe by Kenya. And all you do when you get to the Kenyan border, you present the ID. In fact, it may be that it's not even a physical ID, it could even be a QR code, it could something that can be scanned and you just pass through. This is possible. You go to Europe, in fact, this is what is happening in Europe. They have a Schengen area. You go into Belgium, you can access all other European countries seamlessly. So we have all these rules having been agreed by the African countries to allow for free movement of persons, free movement of data. In fact, there has been a prohibition within limits, of course, of restrictions on the movement of data, including personal data. So we have all of this in the ecosystem of the AfCFTA. Thank you very much.
I will pass now to the European ambassadors.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you.
I mean, a number of questions related to how we work with the AfCFTA and how we engage with them. I think there's two levels to that engagement. The first level is a political engagement. And it goes back to what I said before about the belief in a rules-based international order, in cooperation, in predictability. But it also goes down to our strong belief politically in the African trade integration process. And this is important because not everyone does. And let me call a spade when it comes to the world we're living in. And you think about the big superpowers of the world, the United States, China, Russia, Turkey, India, you name it. I don't want to name and shame, but the support that the European Union provides to the Secretariat dwarfs the support of anyone else. And I speak under the control of Dr. Mekon, but I believe that most of the countries I just mentioned don't engage with the Secretariat, which we find both surprising and disappointed, because once again, we strongly believe that this is the way forward, that the African Union has put in place the right structure to move forward, that Secretary General Mene is providing the right leadership to this process. There's political ways, there's courageousness, there's creativity. Dr. Makong is a good example of all the elements I've been referring to. So this is something I want you to bear in mind. That we are extremely pleased as the EU to be a privileged partner, political partner, first of all, of the Secretariat, but that we feel a bit lonely at times. There are countries that come in and whose support we appreciate. Director Mekon, you know this very well, the Canadians, the Japanese. But as I said, the bulk of the support, both politically and operationally, comes from the European Union. And very proudly so, once again, because we believe in this process. In terms of how we engage operationally, I think it's important for you to understand that we engage in a truly Team Europe spirit. And I'm happy to have two ambassadors flanking me. There are 6 other member states that are coming to the process operationally. Together we provide more than 1 billion euros to this process, which is not an insignificant amount. And this is important as well because each one of the member states brings a different dimension to the partnership. Finland is not only the happiest country in the world, but is among the 3 most innovative countries in the world economically. Ireland has just been referred to by the OSCE as the most productive country in the world. So you can only imagine how important and useful it is for us to come in, also going back to our own experience on trade integration and share these notions with Secretary General Mene, with Dr. Makong and the team, and try to move forward. And try to move forward going back to the point on political belief, on understanding what's at stake, understanding and acknowledging that Africa is doing something that is much more difficult than what we did. When we set up our own free trade area, I mean, in the beginning we were 6 countries. There were 6 countries. Now Africa is trying to set up a free trade area for 54 countries in a territory that is 7 times the size of Europe. Some of those countries besieged by conflict. So we can only give praise to the African Union Secretariat when Secretary General Mene refers to the fact that already 26, that's almost half of the membership of the African Union, is already trading under the new rules of the AfCFTA. This is a remarkable achievement. This is a remarkable achievement from many, many points of view. Operationally, as I said, this is European Team Europe angle, but there's also a variety of actions that we implement. I go back to the 1.2 billion euros of support we're providing that can be broken down on more than 60 actions across the continent. As Director Macron said, some of them directly related to the Secretariat, some of them working with member states individually. We have association agreements with a number of North African countries. We have economic and partnership agreements with some regional groupings and individual countries, and we have agreements specifically with individual countries. And we work, as Director Macron said, across the 8 protocols of the free trade area, all of them, with maybe, and I want to go back to something that Olivia and Seneca referred to, trying to bring, and I don't want to sound too naive or idealistic in today's world, but trying to bring the human perspective, the social perspective to what we do. Trade and investments are very much directly related, and if you take the examples of how the EU invests, and Commissioner Sikela is here to engage on investment, we invest rather differently than others. Let me give you just one simple example, the Lobito Corridor. This is a fantastically challenging project that runs across the DRC, Zambia, and Angola, rather the other way around, Zambia, the DRC, and Angola, so the Copperbelt region in Zambia, Katanga in Congo, all the way to Lobito, to try to create trade links between 3 countries and then export to Europe. When I was in Angola for the AU summit, we had our first shipment of avocados going into Europe. Those investments, those trade links are looked at not only from the perspective of economic benefit, but also from the angle of many of the elements that Eric Macron, Olivia and Seneca are referred to. Do they create jobs? Do they help build inclusive societies? Do they take into account the gender sensitivity of an investment project? Do they look into the environmental sustainability of these projects? Of course, this is a much more difficult undertaking than simply going anywhere else and invest without any preoccupations related to other aspects I mentioned. But the EU strongly believes, and so does the Secretariat and the Free Trade Area, that those elements that relate not just to economic benefits should certainly be brought forward into the equation.
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry, ambassadors, be very, I will give you the chance, but very quickly, because we have 1 minute to finish, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just I forgot one important thing. Somebody was asking about transition. I see this as an excellent example of transition in a positive way. We heard that Ethiopia has started trading under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. You know, in Finland, we would like to see a further goal. We would like to see Europe-Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So let's implement this one at national level and get to the Europe-Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
Well, thank you. I'll be very quick. Bezavit, I think you asked about value chains, and I think that's a really critical point. And I want to say that it is at the forefront of a huge amount of European Union engagement across this continent, and I'm sure will be discussed in some of the technical level groups that were established under, or that will be used under the Free Trade Agreement MOU signed this morning. And I just wanted to add one other thing. The pillars of the EU's engagement on economic development in Africa, it goes well beyond the trade pillar. And I think, you know, one other point that I wanted to mention was around financing, because essentially this is a key part of how the EU is investing in this continent. It's about enabling better financing. It's about meaning that it's not the top thing on the agenda of the leaders that you discussed today. And it's also about the union's very strong support for debt discussions as well. So I think it's really important to see that there are pillars to our engagement, and that the support into the AfCFTA is just one of the ways in which the European Union is investing in its closest neighbour. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and unfortunately we have to close.